Joining us now is the President of the United States, President Trump. Sir, good to have you back on the program.
Hi, Sean.
You know, I watched you last night. You seem to really love doing what you did last night. Explain, why is this important to you, and why there is a phenomenon that people show up at your rallies. We don't see the same thing at the Democratic rallies. Why is that, in your view?
There was tremendous energy in that room last night. There was, and we've had a lot of energy at virtually every rally, but there was just a special energy. I announced we're going forward with the second term, as you know, but the level of, it was like being at a World Championship college football game where the score was tied going into the last minute. It was the entire rally. It was an incredible scene. And outside, there were thousands of people. And, I mean, we were asking people not to show up. We were saying, please don't come, letting the word out, because we had 121,000 people. For, I guess it holds 20 or 25,000 people inside if you include the basketball court, which was loaded up with great, loving patriots. And it was just an electric evening, Sean.
You know, I want to ask you, I don't know if you saw a show on Monday, but Monday we had our friend Lawrence Jones down there, or I guess it was Tuesday night, but no, it was Monday, and it looked like a tailgating party, and people there 40, 45 hours in the pouring rain before the event. I actually kind of regretted not going because I wanted to hang out with the people outside because they were having a blast.
They're people that love our country, and they love seeing what's happening. And it was, in a way, a tailgate party for the country, not for a team, although it's a team when you think about it. But it's a tailgate party for our country. And it was just, the feeling was, it was like love. But it's love for what we're all about, for the things we stand for. It was a beautiful evening. It was. And even the enemies, and, we have a lot of people that don't like us so much. You possibly have heard about that, Sean. I'm not sure.
I might have read about that.
Possibly.
I think I read
those people were even saying it was
a
lot. Some say they've never seen anything quite like it. It was special. And, it was pouring. They had a monsoon, and I don't think one person walked offline. They had a rain like you haven't seen, and it didn't. Nobody left. They just sat there and stood there, and some brought tents. They were there for 2 days waiting to get in. Incredible evening.
I bought a painting from this guy in Utah. His name is John McNaughton, and it was called The Forgotten Man. I have the original copy. I paid a lot of money for it, and I bought it because it mattered to me. And if you recall, in 2015 and 2016, I told everybody what the Biden-Obama record was after 8 years. I said it almost every day on radio and TV for a year. 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, worst recovery since the 40s, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, more debt than 43 presidents before them combined, and they never hit 1 year 3% GDP growth for a year.
That's right.
And those are all real people. You talked at length about record low unemployment, the best employment situation from 1969. I know the media talks about Russia still, after 4 investigations, they want a 5th. But what does it mean to you that we have now 2 million more jobs available than people that are on unemployment? What does that mean to you?
Well, the media is not talking about Russia so much. The Mueller report concluded that on Russia there was absolutely no collusion. And frankly, they led to the conclusion by our great Attorney General that there was no obstruction. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. It's a hoax. It was a hoax, a witch hunt, but a hoax, the whole thing. Greg Jarrett said it very well when he named his book, The Russian Hoax. And it is disgraceful that they're allowed. And they're very upset now because it didn't turn out like they thought, because we did. We had 18 angry Democrats that hated Trump, and many of them contributed to Hillary's campaign. And it came out there was no collusion. So I don't hear Russia much anymore. They've given up on that one. But You know, they did something that is a disgrace. I will also say, if the other side had won, if Hillary won, you would have, instead of being up almost 50% since election, 5 million jobs plus. 5 million jobs, that's unthinkable. If I would have said that we're going to create 5 million jobs in 2.5 years, people would have said, how ridiculous. I would have been skewered by the press. All of the things that have been done, that we've done, nobody's seen it. We have the best and lowest unemployment rate for African Americans, for Asians, for Hispanics. Nobody's ever seen numbers like this. We have the best numbers on living standard for African Americans, the best numbers that we've ever had in history. So many things are, I mean, just one thing after another. If the other side would have won, we would have gone into a depression. And we were headed that way. The rules, regulations, we cut more regulations than any president, and unmeaningful regulation. We want regulation, but it's got to be meaningful. It stymied our country, Sean. We weren't able to do anything. Jobs numbers would have been a disaster. Instead, we have more people working today, almost 160 million people, than have ever worked in the history of our country. Think of that. That's a great number. So it's really been something. The other side, you would have had, I really believe you would have had a crash.
You know, Mr. President, I come from blue-collar roots. 10 years in the restaurant business. At 12, I was washing dishes by hand. 10 years in the construction business, every job imaginable. So I really identify with the forgotten man and women. And I think everybody in this job in the media were overpaid, and most of them are lazy. And I just want to, you know, when you think back, and those statistics I just gave you, if it's 13 million, 8 million, those are real American citizens, real lives, and now they're really doing better. And I think one of the best things that is understated is we are, for the first time in 75 years, energy independent, which means we don't have to go kissing the ass of countries that don't like us. And we are now a net exporter of energy. And by the way, if Putin remains hostile and Russia remains hostile, I think we outproduce them and we bring their economy to its knees.
Well, we're now number one in the world in energy. It used to be Saudi Arabia, then Russia. It's now we're number one. And as soon as I get the pipelines in Texas approved, which I'll do pretty quickly, it would have taken 10, 15 years. I'm going to have it done very quickly. We could increase our production by 30 and 40% in terms of sale. So it's, you know, what we've done in the last 2.5 years has been great. We've had a lot of great people, and they've worked hard. But the great people are the people of the country. They were being strangled. You look at what we've done, just energy all over, all types of energy. LNG now we're the hottest in the world. There's nobody even close. So it's been an honor. It's been an honor. We freed it up. But you would have had, I really believe you would have had a depression or very close had the other side won.
Mr. President, all this, Devin Nunes wrote a column, who was the former ranking member of the House Intel Committee, in 2014, warning the Biden-Obama administration about Russia interference in the 2016 election. He laid it out perfectly in 2014. This all happened on their watch. Yep. All of it happened on their watch. And my question to you is, there really was some collusion, wasn't there? There was Russian interference, we know that. But we also had a bought and paid for Russian dossier. And we didn't look into that in the whole 2+ years of Mueller. The media's ignored it. And even the New York Times suggesting that it was likely Russian misinformation from the get-go, the dossier. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a disgrace. It's turned out to be totally discredited. Steele was sued by somebody, I understand a wealthy gentleman in London. I hear that what was revealed was incredible, just a total phony deal, and yet they didn't look into any of that. One of the things that amazes me, because it's so simple, and you know, it's when you get right down to it, the whole thing is very simple. What happened? The fact is, they were spying on my campaign, using agencies intelligence agencies to do it, going after Page and Papadopoulos and probably others. We're trying to find out whether or not they actually listened in on my calls. That would be the ultimate. We'll see what happens. I think if that happened, we'll probably find out. We have a great attorney general who's working very hard, and we'll see what happens. I stay uninvolved. I like to stay uninvolved. But a lot of things are going to come out. I mean, if they spied on my campaign, and they may have, it will be one of the great revelations in history of this country. And I will tell you, going to be very interesting. I think we're going to find out. Can you imagine if it were the other way around and I spied on President Obama's campaign? Could you imagine what the repercussions would be? Or I spied on crooked Hillary's campaign. Can you imagine what the repercussions would be?
Let me ask you specifically. I want to stay on this topic because I think this abuse of power is very dangerous. You addressed it last night. Sir, your campaign was spied on. In October 2016, Hillary's dossier, bought and paid for Russian dossier, paid for by her, and the money she controlled at the DNC, that was funneled through a law firm that hired a op research group that hired a foreign national. We now know that Bruce Orr testified behind closed doors that everybody was warned that Christopher Steele hated you, that Hillary paid for it, and that it was not verified. That was August of 2016, 14 days before Jim Comey signed the first FISA application. And a FISA application, I'm told, says the word verified on it. Before he signed it, he was warned by Kathleen Kavlak of the State Department, who met with Christopher Steele. So my question to you is, you were spied on as a candidate during your transition as president, and then abroad, we had Stefan Halper spying on Carter Page, Sam Clovis, George Papadopoulos. So those are just ways that we've already verified. It's not in dispute anymore. Your campaign was spied on. Your transition was spied on. Jim Comey, 3 months after he signed that warrant, verifying the Russian dossier, bulk of information is true, he then came to Trump Tower and told you it's salacious but unverified, the opposite of what he was telling the court. Do you believe that there was a premeditated fraud committed against FISA court judges in these applications?
Well, again, people are looking into that. If you're asking just my opinion, I would say absolutely yes. It would seem to be yes. And, you know, when you get the Strzok Page, the two lovers who put right out on the public waves, I mean, they put the insurance policy. Well, we've been living through the insurance policy that she was going to win, but just in case she didn't win, we need an insurance policy. Well, that's to subvert government. What they did was unbelievable that they could do a thing like that. And they reported to McCabe, who I think is a terrible, terrible guy. And, you know, the FBI, you have some of the finest people in the world. That you know that, and we say it all the time. And I'll bet you if we took a vote, I'd be so high in that poll, you wouldn't even believe it. They're great people. I know so many. But the top people were terrible. They were leakers. They were liars. I mean, look at the leaking and look at the lying. Comey admitted he leaked. Think of it, the top of the FBI, he leaked. And when you look at what went on, Sean, it's disgusting. But the whole concept of they want an insurance policy just in case she loses. Well, that's what we've lived through. We've lived through the insurance policy. And yet the House committee, which I understand today was in a very closed, confidential meeting with the wonderful Hope Hicks. She's a wonderful person. She's been through hell. They put this young woman through hell, what she's had to pay for legal fees and everything else. I hear they were taking pictures of her, congressmen, two congressmen in particular that I see on television all the time. I won't mention their names. We don't want to make them any more famous. But two congressmen, but they were taking pictures of her with their cell phone and then leaking the pictures of her testifying. And this was in a closed room. Look, it's out of control. These people are absolutely, you know, they use the word, it's a good word, I guess, unhinged. What's happened to the Democrats, and in the meantime, they're not doing any work in Congress. We could do legislation to lower drug prices very substantially, easily. we could do maybe almost like the thing we need the most quickly is border security. We've done an incredible job, but I have to do it myself. We can't get any votes from the Democrats. We can't get any votes. And infrastructure, we could do it so easily. But they're so busy interviewing Hope Hicks and taking pictures of this incredible young woman and putting the pictures out to the press of her testifying. And they're not allowed to do that. It's probably illegal. It's a terrible thing going on, John.
Sir, there have been 4 separate investigations. Let me remind you. The 9-month FBI investigation, the one that Peter Strzok said there's no there. Lisa Page said we had nothing after 9 months as it relates to collusion. Then there was the House Intel Committee investigation, no collusion. Then the Bipartisan Senate Committee, no collusion. Then the Mueller report directly quoted it, no collusion, no conspiracy. I had wanted you, I'm a talk show host, so I sometimes do straight news. We do investigative reporting, sometimes sports and culture, and I give strong conservative opinions. I've been a conservative all my career. We don't hide that fact. But I have wanted you to declassify the 302s, declassify all this information, the FISA applications, declassify the Gang of Eight, declassify exculpatory information. You have done so, but you gave it to the Attorney General. Why?
Yes, because I think that he is a very honorable gentleman who wants to do the right thing, and he is allowed to, under my agreement, he's allowed to give it out to whoever he wants. But I think it's really, maybe some of this you need to have for purposes of other countries, because I think other countries were involved. I think they, perhaps, just based on what I'm seeing, they used other countries because they didn't want to get caught doing what they were doing in this country. You know that very well. So I wanted to give it to Attorney General Bill Barr. He's got it totally, everything that I can do in terms of opening it up and making it transparent, as the politicians like to use that word, transparent. I'm the most transparent president in history. I let Mueller have everything they wanted. If you think of it, 500 witnesses, interview our attorneys, interview whoever you want. I think 2,500 subpoenas. I didn't use presidential privilege because I didn't speak to Russia. Russia has, when I was winning in Wisconsin, when I was winning in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Florida and all of these states, North Carolina, the last person or group I ever thought of calling would be Russia. It's a hoax. It's a terrible hoax, and it should never happen to another president again, because many of them would not be able to handle it. I don't care who they are. Many of them would not be able to handle it. Do you think Joe Biden could handle it? I mean, Joe Biden right now, he looks like he's got some big problems. But do you think, can you imagine if this happened to Joe Biden? It wouldn't be good. But it should never happen to another president what happened to me, and it should never happen. Nobody should ever allow this to go forward again. And people have to learn. There has to be a lesson taught. There has to be a lesson taught. It should never be allowed. So bad for our country.
Mr. President, I do have a question about this, because you didn't invoke executive privilege. You handed in 1.4 million documents. You encouraged your staff to cooperate with Congress, to cooperate with Mueller. I never liked Mueller's team. I could not, for the life of me, understand how does he hire Andrew Weissman, the worst record of any lawyer I've ever seen, people like Jeannie Ray, who was once Clinton's lawyer on the Clinton Foundation, and you gave written answers. Everybody, you even let your White House counsel, McGahn, testify for 30 hours. I was a little shocked, to be honest. Why would you allow that?
I let everybody testify. I wanted to be totally open because I knew there was nothing there. There was nothing there, nothing at all. But, you know, Bob Mueller was conflicted because he wanted to be the head of the FBI, the director. Again, he was already there for 10 or 12 years. But he wanted to be, and I didn't allow that. I said no. I said it respectfully. We had a business dispute in the private life. When he was out of the FBI, we had a commercial business dispute. How about having a business dispute with somebody? Think of this, and then he's supposed to be ruling on you. But it was a business dispute, and it was a nasty little dispute. You know, not the biggest one I've ever been in, to be honest with you, but we had a real business dispute. So you look at that, that's a total conflict of interest. How can somebody where you have a dispute be ruling? And his best friend, or very close to it, is Comey. And Comey played a big part in this because McCabe didn't do anything without Comey. McCabe was totally dominated by Comey. He did nothing. Andrew McCabe was a bad guy, but Andrew McCabe did nothing without calling Comey. He wouldn't, there's an expression, he wouldn't go to the bathroom without getting Comey's approval. And so Comey's in. And Brennan, you take a look at Brennan, you talk over the horrible rhetoric, the horrible words he used.
He accused you of treason,
to describe it. And then he said, well, I guess I was misinformed. You know, he was making all these predictions. And then when it said no collusion in the Mueller report, which is amazing because they had 18 people that were Hillary Clinton people that I think all of them actually were anti-Trump people in one form or another. But many of these people, they gave to Clinton's campaign. One or two of them were including Weissman, were at the event, which turned out to be, as you know, her wake. It was a funeral. It was supposed to be a party at the convention center in New York. It turned out to be a funeral.
Yeah, he was at the victory party. The so-called victory party.
Pretty devastating looking scene. I saw the same scene as you did. But think of it. Bob Mueller was great friends with Comey. Right there's a conflict. He wanted the FBI job, and we had a business dispute. And I would tell everybody who'd listen. I told you a long time ago. I said, how could he be doing this? But despite that, let him do it. I said, let him do it because I had nothing to do, and they know that. They all know that. I had nothing to do with Russia. I love our country. I love our country. By doing this, I've sacrificed a lot. I had a very simple life. I had a great company, great everything. Everything was great. I sacrificed a lot, but I've made a tremendous difference. You know, so many people come up to me, Sean, and they say, thank you, sir, for saving our country. And I used to take it with a grain of salt. Oh, that was but they say it, and they mean it. I went to the other day. I was the commencement speaker at the Air Force Academy. Incredible young people, and I handed out 1,000 diplomas to the senior class. That's a lot of shaking hands and saluting, I will tell you. It was a couple of hours, but it was great. But so many young, beautiful people. They're young people, the beginning of an incredible life. They came up to me and they say, thank you, sir, for saving our country. I know exactly what they mean. Our country was in big trouble, and we've got to turn now in the right direction.
Mr. President, just as an aside, you did have a constitutional authority under Article 2 with a conflict to fire Mueller, who would have been replaced, and I would add one thing.
Absolutely right.
It will be
I had absolutely Article 2 powers. I could have done anything I wanted. I don't even bring it up because we don't even get there. Absolutely, I have Article 2. We could have used that, and I wouldn't even have to bother talking to you about all of the other things. I wouldn't have to talk to you about conflicts. I could have fired Mueller for conflicts. I could have fired anybody, but I didn't want to do it because they said, let it play out. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. It's a disgrace. And that they're allowed to go forward with, you know, interviewing people, having people like Hope Hicks and others having to pay for a new set of lawyers.
Same questions.
They just went through it with the Mueller report. Now, she was totally exonerated. She did nothing wrong. And now they have to start paying for lawyers again? It's a do-over because the report was terrible for them.
Mr. President, this will be the fifth.
You're not allowed do-overs.
This would be the fifth investigation, and you're right. Those Washington lawyers are expensive. I had to hire a few of them in my day. But I just want to say one thing. One good question I want answered is, did Italy, did Great Britain, did Australia, were they outsourced intelligence gathering by high-ranking people, not rank and file, to spy on American citizens and circumvent American laws? Will be a big question. But I want to change gears here. I want to ask you about
Take a look at Ukraine. How come the FBI didn't take the server? Podesta told him to get out. He said, get out. So how come the FBI didn't take the server from the DNC? Just think about that one, Sean.
Let me ask you, there's 20-some-odd candidates. I want to get your general thoughts on all of them. And is there anyone in particular you'd prefer to run against, or do you care at all?
Well, we have to see how it plays out. I mean, whoever it is. I don't know. I mean, I look at some of them. I don't see George Washington. I don't see Churchill. I don't see anybody in particular that I worry about. I think, honestly, whoever it is, we will.
I don't see George Washington either, sir.
Look, you see the polls that came out today. We had a couple of actually legitimate polls that came out today, not the polls that the media makes up. See, I'm fighting the Democrats and the media together. It's not, and you know that better than almost anybody, but the people know that. I'm fighting the Democrat Party, and I'm fighting the media. They're partners. They're partners. I mean, that's why they don't go after Hillary Clinton with her emails, where anybody else would be in jail for what she did. The emails, to delete 33,000 emails after you get a subpoena from Congress. You delete everything, so people never got to see him. But the media and the Democrats are, and not all of it, but a big portion of it, they're a partnership. And that's disgraceful. So I'm fighting that partnership. I'm not fighting. Actually, fighting the media is much tougher than fighting the Democrats, if you want to know the truth.
Well, Mr. President, I call them the media mob, and it's for look, for example, I say it's every second, every minute, every hour of every day, and they all lied and they all fell for the hoax and the conspiracy theory, and they're trying to revisit it. But I want to just ask you this.
They didn't fall for the hoax. They know it's a hoax, but they write about it anyway. It's not like they fell for it. These are very smart people. They know it's a hoax, and they write about it anyway. I watch. When I have to, I just do it just to get a little ammunition. It's always you have to know where the other side is coming from. I watch every once in a while. I'll turn to MSNBC, and I'll see what they say. I know most of the people, and it's a fraud. They go back and they meet, and what can we make up? Remember when everybody used the word manufactured? And every newscast had the word manufactured, but it's not a word associated with what they were talking about. They were talking about something being manufactured. And every newscast started with manufactured. And they did it with numerous words. They come up with a word, they put it out. They're all together. It's a really disgraceful situation. Here's the good news. We're president. We've done it. And we're going to do it again. When you see a crowd like that, Sean, nobody's seen anything like that. I mean, not only the crowd, nobody's seen the spirit and the energy. It's been incredible. I say the Republicans have far more energy. You know, you hear about the energy on the Democrat side. They don't have energy. They're all fighting with each other. I say the Republicans have far more energy than the Democrats. I really believe that. I think they have a lot more
a few of them, sir,
energy than the Democrats.
Use a little bit of
the radical left DEMS.
A few of these Republicans, frankly, could use a spine transplant, in my view, but I don't want to go there.
I agree. No, but we have some great ones, too. We have some great ones. But you're right. There are some that really should. Look, Nancy Pelosi hands out subpoenas like they're cookies. Paul Ryan, nice guy, but I will tell you, when Jim and when Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan and Devin and all these people, they're great people.
They're amazing. They're the amazing ones.
When they went to Paul Ryan to get a subpoena because they found the same things that we're talking about, Paul would say, well, let's take it easy. Let's not this. Let's come back in a week. Let's see if we still think about it. Let's do this. It was impossible. You couldn't get a subpoena. She hands out subpoenas like they're cookies.
Let me ask you this, sir, about the Democrats.
They fight a dirtier fight. The Democrats fight a dirtier fight. It's too bad.
All right, so the Democrat debates begin next week. They're supporting this new Green Deal. In 10 years, they want to get rid of the lifeblood of our economy, oil and gas. Everything's going to be free. They're talking about a 70% top marginal tax rate for individuals, a 90% top marginal rate for businesses, and a wealth tax on top of that. And then when you die, you got to pay a tax. And again, everything is free. They all seem to support some version of it, and Medicare for all, but you can't buy private insurance, according to, say, Kamala Harris. How did Obamacare work out for everybody? But what is your reaction to this agenda?
Well, first of all, with Obamacare, we took out the individual mandate, which is the worst part. Obamacare is a disaster, and we've managed it really well. That's why you don't hear so much about it. But we've really done a great job. Secretary Azar has been incredible the way they've handled Obamacare. But I got rid of the individual mandate, which was the worst thing in Obamacare. That's where you paid for the privilege of not having to pay for insurance, for bad insurance, okay, bad health care. So, it's just one of those things. No, I think that when I meet somebody who even doesn't like me, let's say it's a business person, and they're not Trump fans, I say, you have no choice. You can't vote for anybody else because they want to turn this country over to we will be a Venezuela. It'll take 10 years or 15 years, but if the wrong person got in, I've turned it around, Sean. I've gotten rid of these rules and regulations that stifled everything. I approved the Keystone Pipeline. I approved the numerous other pipelines. By the way, they're environmentally good as opposed to trains running across, the plains and all of the other things. No, I approved so many different things that are actually good. Do you know that a report came out, our water and our air today is cleaner than it ever was? Because in many respects, we're great environmentalists. I'm an environmentalist, but a different kind, a real environmentalist. But our water is crystal clean, our air, it's the best it ever was.
I would agree, sir. We all need to be good stewards of the greatest country God gave man. Are you really going to live tweet? Are we going to be? You really going to live tweet these Democratic debates, sir?
I wasn't going to, but I read about it in the Wall Street Journal or someplace, and it's just fake news. No, I wasn't even thinking about it. Maybe I will now. I mean, might as well make them right. But no, I was not thinking about it.
If I could cast my vote, I'm a yes. I think it would be a great idea. Let me ask you a question.
They wrote about it, though, as though it was fact. I never even thought about it. It's just so ridiculous. But, maybe I'll do it. I'll make them, instead of fake news, I'll make them correct news, and that's okay.
I think it would be a good idea. It would be very interesting, actually. I see, for example, that you promised that ICE next week will begin the process of removing millions of people that didn't respect our laws, border sovereignty. 90% of the heroin in this country comes across that southern border. Now fentanyl. We're losing 300 people a week in this country. And my question to you is, there are some people that will ask me about you, and they'll say, well, you've known him for over 2 decades, which I have, and I've known you a long time, and you said he'd be conservative, and you were right, and we didn't believe you, and you're pro-life, and you conservative justices and tax cuts and deregulation and energy independence, all things I believed in 30 years of media. So now you're fighting for the border wall, but people say, well, maybe Donald Trump should maybe tweet a little less and not fight so much on the personal level. But yet it takes a fight against China, against Mexico. You were kind of standing alone saying you'd hit them with tariffs if they didn't stop these migrations from happening. So my question to you is, how do you respond to that? That people want you, I guess, to turn off the switch that you fight for the borders and you fight for your agenda, but they don't want you to maybe fight on Twitter.
Well, if I don't use the word Twitter, I say social media. If I don't use social media, I have, outside of you and a few other great people, I call them patriots, actually, but you're not really patriots as much as you want ratings. I mean, you're getting great ratings in all fairness, Sean. It's like last night, you got tremendous, I heard the speech got fantastic ratings. You put it on. That was an easy night. You and Tucker and everybody else having to, do it, and you did it. And it was a great evening. But no, I think I view it as social media as a way of getting the word out. Look, when you have the lies and the frauds committed by the other networks, many of the other networks, you look at what's going on, it's disgraceful. This way I get the word out, and I'm getting it out strongly. I mean, I have hundreds of millions of people that see this. Plus, as soon as I do a tweet, it gets broadcast even on the places that you would least expect it, because they're desperate for news. They're desperate to do anything for news. So it's really a way of getting the truth out, because the media's just gone loco. They've lost all control. They don't even call up for fact check. I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I actually used to get great press, if you want to know the truth. But 10 or 15 years before I decided to become a politician and run on a conservative basis, because that's what it is, and that's what's That's what we're doing so well at. That's why the country is doing so well now. You know, we're probably doing better right now, our economy. Wages are up, haven't gone up in years and decades. Wages are up over 3%. Think of the things that have happened, the jobs, the unemployment, the amount of people working. Companies are pouring back into our country from Japan. They're coming back from, frankly, they're coming back from China because of the fact I put the tariffs on. In order not to pay the tariffs, they're coming back into this country. So many things are happening. But the way I get the word out is through social media, and it's a great thing. I don't know that I would have been successful if I didn't have it. And, you know, when I make a speech like last night, there was a fantastic woman right in the front. She had, "Please keep tweeting, Mr. President. It matters." That was her sign. Please keep tweeting. It matters. And I think it does matter. I don't do it because I enjoy it. I do it because when somebody says an outright lie on MSNBC or CNN, both of whom are really suffering in the ratings, which is very interesting, it's incredible because they've lost credibility. But when they put out lies, I can counteract those lies, and I have many more followers than they do. So it's a great thing.
Let me ask you, you know, you said you're going to begin the process of removing millions of illegal immigrants.
Right.
I also want to get to the status of the border wall. I know there's been miles repaired and miles built. You know, is it going to be finished with your first term? Because they were not able to override your veto, and you were able to reallocate funds.
So as you know, the Democrats are doing everything possible to stop the wall, and they lost a big lawsuit last week. I won a big lawsuit against Nancy Pelosi in the House. It was the House actually brought a lawsuit. Can you believe that? The House, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi brought a lawsuit, and we won the lawsuit, as you probably read. We will have but we have 4 other lawsuits against us, all semi-related and related to each other. We are building a tremendous wall right now. We're renovating vast areas of wall that's essentially collapsed, but it's good if you renovate. You save a lot of money by renovating it. And we're taking down wall and putting up new wall. Some areas you can renovate. But we'll have over 400 miles of wall built by the end of next year, which is very quick. It's rapidly approaching. We have 3 sections being built right now. We're building them in sections in different areas in different states. New Mexico has a tremendous problem with people pouring across New Mexico. And I'm hearing that because of this, New Mexico is actually in play for me and for the Republicans because of what's happening. It's horrible what's happening to New Mexico.
If you get 400, though.
We have big sections that started and are about to start in New Mexico. We just finished San Diego, as you know, San Diego and California. They're so happy. The mayor was just up in my office, great guy, and he came up to thank me for having done the wall because it's made such a difference. He said it's like day and night. He said people are flowing across, and now nobody can come in.
Well, let me ask you this.
And I was able to design and redesign the wall where it's stronger, bigger, higher. You know, it's actually got a little bit higher, if you remember that. But it's a better wall and it costs less money. It's actually a stronger wall, costs less money. So we're doing really well with the wall, and it's a very important element. And we're doing well overall, and we're going to start removing all these people that came in because the Democrats will not, under any circumstances, they won't fix asylum. Asylum's a big problem. They won't fix it. We could fix it in 15 minutes, and they won't get rid of the loopholes because they want us to fail. It's more important that we fail than the country succeed. And you have drugs and you have all these other things. But what we're doing is as the people come out and as we get the necessary paperwork, we're moving people out of the innards of the country and we're bringing them back. And the countries that see this and they see it happening, it's already started, but it's really starting in a much heavier fashion next week. It's, you know, they're gearing up. It's you know, sending a signal that you may get in, but you're not getting in for long, and you're going out. And the other thing, finally, is Mexico, for the first time ever, for the first time in, you know, many, many decades, they are respecting us. And we had a big fight, and it worked out great. And
let me ask
Mexico
you about...
now has 6,000 soldiers on the southern border, on their southern border, stopping people from coming in. And they've been really stepping it up. And, you know, frankly, I was going to put tariffs on if they didn't. If they didn't do that, I would have put tariffs, and I still will if they don't. But they've been doing a really good job. And people at the border will tell you that the traffic has really dropped down. So a lot of good things are happening. But if the Democrats would meet for 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I always say, used to be 45. It's just a very short meeting. We could solve the border problem. But they don't want to do that because they think it's bad politically. I think what's bad, Sean, what's really bad is what they're doing. I think it's terrible politically. People come in, it's crime, it's drugs. We can stop it all so fast. But we're going to stop it anyway, even if we don't have the Democrats.
I say that Nancy Pelosi is speaker in name only, and that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has really become the big star, and she even got Joe Biden to come up with a new Green Deal plan. What are your thoughts about her and Congresswoman Omar and the position that Nancy Pelosi is in?
I don't really agree with you. I think Nancy Pelosi probably has control of it. I hear different things, but I really think she does. And she knows what she's doing, and so we'll see how it all comes out. But look, we have the USMCA, the Mexico and Canada trade deal, which is a phenomenal deal for our country, and it's good for them too, but it's a phenomenal deal for our farmers and manufacturers and even unions. Everybody wants it. So the Democrats could do that in a bipartisan way. Mexico just approved it today. You probably heard. They just approved it. Their House just approved it in a big vote. So, you know, we're just waiting to see whether or not they'll put that up for a vote. I mean, think of it. Can you imagine if they didn't? This is something that everybody wants. It'll be a very bipartisan approval. But
Let me ask you
and all of the folks in the House, they have to put it up for a vote, and it'll vote. It's great for the farmers. Everybody wants them to do it. So we'll see. Again, do they want to do what's right for the party? And they can take credit for that bill because, frankly, make it bipartisan. We'll all vote for it. But it's a big bill. Canada's approving it. Mexico just approved it. A very, very big deal. And it means hundreds of billions of dollars to our country and thousands of jobs. And it replaces NAFTA, one of the worst trade deals ever made.
Let me ask you about foreign policy, if I may. You made promises to Israel. Jerusalem's now the capital. Many other presidents promised it. They didn't deliver. You recognize Golan, which other people promised and didn't deliver. You promised you'd get us out of the Iranian deal. I don't think you're going to drop $150 billion in cash and other currency on the tarmac of mullahs that chant death to America. I worry about Iranian hegemony. I worry about Iranian proxy wars and terror. I worry about their alliance with Vladimir Putin. And I'm not sure where China shakes out in all of this. As you look at the geopolitical work up there, Iran, Russia, China, tell me your concerns.
Don't worry about a thing. Everything's under control. Don't worry about a thing. You're right. We did that for Israel, Jerusalem. As you know, every president said, we're going to, you move the embassy to Jerusalem, becomes the capital of Israel. Every president said, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. None of them did. I did it. The Golan Heights. For 52 years, they've been talking about the Golan Heights. I did it. They didn't do it. And I understand why, because you get here, there's a lot of people calling, begging you not to do it from other countries, heads of countries. But presidents of practically all said they're going to do Golan Heights, they're going to do Jerusalem. They didn't do it. And then terminating one of the worst deals ever made, the Iran deal that was made by President Obama, paid $150 billion, paid $1.8 billion in cash. I terminated that, and Iran is a much different country. I will tell you, much different today than when I took over. When I took over, it looked like there was no stopping them. Right now,
will you say they never get nukes?
But
they never get nuclear weapons?
I would say, if I were you, don't worry about a thing.
What about Putin and China?
Well, they were forced together by President Obama, and you never like to see that, but they were forced together by his attitude and by what they did. And when I got here, they were getting very close. But we're doing things that nobody will be able to even compete with in so many different ways. Second of all, we're going to have a good relationship with Russia, and we're going to have a good relationship with China. It's very important that we do. They're powerful nations, and we're a very powerful nation. And I've rebuilt our military to a level that nobody thought possible, $716 billion last year. Nobody thought it was depleted when I got in. They had planes that were so old they couldn't fly. And our military is almost completed in terms of being rebuilt. And we are doing missile technology that nobody's even seen before.
Mr. President,
I'm thinking about do we announce it or do we not announce it? But we have tremendous, the levels of sophistication like you've never seen. With all of that being said, I want to get along with Russia, and I think we will. I want to get along with China, and I think we will. I'm meeting actually both of them next week in Japan at the G20. And I think it's important that the United States gets along. The Russian witch hunt really hurt us in terms of our relationship with Russia. I think it was just hurt. I think it hurt us in terms of relationship with a lot of people. But we have very good relationships with countries, and sometimes countries that you wouldn't think so, because I've said you got to pay for NATO. You know, the United States was paying for NATO. You had a lot of countries that were delinquent in their payments to NATO. I got them to pay over $100 billion toward NATO. But I think that we're going to get along with a lot of countries. But those two in particular, I think we're going to have I hope we're going to have a good relationship. But we're a very strong country again, and we're respected again, Sean.
I hate to interrupt you, but I actually took 50 minutes of Laura Ingram's show, but I want to tell you.
I know that. I noticed that Laura must not be happy right now.
It's her birthday today, sir.
Well, she's
I thought you might want to know that.
I'll tell you what.
So Laura, you can tell Laura yourself happy birthday, and thank you for being with us. Laura, happy birthday from me, and the president, I think, would like to wish you a happy birthday.
That's right.
Hey, Mr. President.
Thank you. Happy birthday. Wow, that's great. We've known each other a long time, and congratulations on your show. It's a big success, Laura. Big success.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Mr. President. And if you want to just stay on for another few minutes, that's fine, but I don't want to take Hannity's interview and take the baton from it. Can we just want to do that?
Imagine if you just, the baton. We hand off to Laura.
All right, Mr. President.
I want to thank you both, because I'll tell you what. You're great patriots. You love our country, and you know what's happening, and I really appreciate it. And so does everyone else, and that's why you do as well as you do. They do appreciate it. They really get it. The people of this country, they get it. They're smart.
Mr. President, did you get briefed on this Syrian attack or planned attack on a Christian church in Pittsburgh yet? I mean, this news broke this evening, and it's disturbing. I have been told about it in little detail, and I'm going to meet a little bit later about it, actually, tonight. It looks like a tragedy was averted, thankfully.
Yeah, that's right.
Another concern. Mr. President, thank you so much.